Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blooms and Beyond podcast, a podcast that uncovers plant history, culture, and management through the lens of science. I'm your host, Ping. In today's episode, me, my colleague Richie, and one of my PhD student Yan here with me at the University of Georgia. We're going to have a brief introduction to this podcast. Richie.
Thank you, Dr. Yu. It's a pleasure to join you today. And I've been looking forward to this as you have been sharing this really cool vision that you have for this series. And of course, I work with you across the way. I'm with the Center for Urban Agriculture. With them, I'm what they call a systems administrator and developer, but I work with the center predominantly in the online programming space.
Thank you. Yan.
Hi everyone, my name is Yan Zhang, and I'm a first-year PhD student in horticulture at the University of Georgia. I'm currently working with Dr. Ping Yu. My research focuses on thrips, integrated pest management, and ornamental plants. Since I worked on my master's degree, I started to do research about pest management. At that time, I worked on an insect called bark beetle. My experience taught me how to see research as an exploration, not just about the results, but about learning from every attempt.
Well, thanks for handing the reins over for just a minute. So, Ping, I have really enjoyed both getting to know you and getting to know you professionally as well over these last couple of years. And one of the things that's really stood out to me has been both the story of kind of how you landed different places working on different things professionally. But one of the things I know your audience is going to be excited to hear is a bit more on the story about how you found your way to where you are, what brought you to this field specifically and how you navigated your way to horticulture in the first place. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that with us?
Oh, no, not at all. Honestly, over the years, I have heard a lot of different stories of how they ended up in horticulture with so many people from so many different backgrounds. And some may be a professional ballet dancer, and some might be engineering, ended up in horticulture. So my story is a little bit different from them because I grew up in a small village town in Zhejiang, Sichuan province, southeastern China. That town is known for a 2,000-year-old irrigation system. It's a prime example of sustainable water management. One of the things that amazed me the most is the irrigation system is still functioning today. If you haven't heard about the irrigation system, that's fine. But I think you probably know the giant panda. So my hometown is known for giant panda and beautiful natural sceneries and spicy food. My first horticulture endeavor was a competition with friends, gardenia propagation, when I was only 10 years old. I made a couple of cuttings from the gardenia plants from one of my neighbor's yard and inserted them into our rice field behind the house with the surface irrigation. That's just basically how they grow rice in the southeastern China. Spoiler alert, I won. Then I received my bachelor degree in horticulture from Sichuan Normal University with my initial intention to become an architecture designer. But the more I learn about horticulture in general, the more I fell in love with that. So after I got my bachelor degree in horticulture, I pursued my master degree in horticulture science in Nanjing Fortune University. And there, I had the opportunity to talk to one of the professors here in the US. And then I decided to pursue my PhD degree here in the United States, Texas A&M. And then from there, I spent another 10 months in University of Florida as a postdoc or associate researcher. In 2022, I joined the University of Georgia as an assistant professor and ornamental horticulture specialist.
What an incredibly unique story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I have to say, you have mentioned before a little bit about your background, your initial inclination towards design. Do you ever find yourself spotting almost like crossovers between some of your passions there? Like, do you ever find a bit of maybe odd or surprising crossover between a bit of a design background with your modern experience in horticulture?
A little bit. When I was doing my bachelor degree, we are all majoring in horticulture, but a lot of my classmates right now, they are working as designers or working in like a landscape architecture design type of work. And my master degree, while I am focusing more on the horticulture perspective, some of my lab mates, they are from the art school or art department where most of their work are towards designing in architecture and art in general. So a lot of times we would work together for a landscape design project. One of the things that I find is for the designers, they spend a lot of time working with the computer, using the computer to draw the footprint or the blueprint for the project in general. But then one thing I find very odd, but not really from their perspective, is a lot of times they are the one putting the plant in their project. However, a lot of times we have to work with them because they don't know which plant will survive. Or they would like, oh, I like this. But then when you put this little thing into your project, into your drawing, it doesn't make sense. Once you're putting the real plant into there, they're gonna die. If they die, you would not have your ideal effect with the system that you wanna build. So that's one of the things I think every institution need to require those designers to at least take some basic plant class so that they would understand some basic information about the plant they are putting into their design.
It amazes me sometimes how much of it is there to see when we're able to look just a little bit beyond the surface. It's amazing just how tied together those are.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all that and kind of continuing off that and diving into this even more. Would you mind sharing with us both a little bit more about your background now and kind of how that ties into your role here at UGA?
Yeah, like I said, after I further trained my professional career at the University of Florida, I came here as an assistant professor and extension specialist in the horticulture department. So my current role is extension specialist. I help the commercial nursery and greenhouse growers with horticulture issues, including irrigation, nutrient, substrate management, and anything related to production. As my student Yan mentioned a little bit, also work with some horticulture practices that can be incorporated with integrated pest management practices. So I work closely with colleagues from other disciplines, including weed science, entomology, and plant pathology, and also along with our wonderful extension agent to provide us strong support for our stakeholders for thriving green industry in Georgia and beyond. With my PhD degree, I work primarily with substrates, specifically biochar for greenhouse crops production. Also worked a little bit on disease suppression for that perspective. And for my postdoc training, I worked with a weed scientist and working on weed control for ornamental horticulture. So it's kind of a combination of all those core disciplines incorporating with entomology or plant pathology and weed science and horticulture all together to serve our industry or stakeholders, because I've quickly find that the key source that they are constantly looking for. So that's basically my current responsibility.
So you had mentioned both your colleagues in plant pathology, of course, your colleagues in horticulture, and then colleagues in entomology as well. And I'm excited to hear more about your adventures in all those spaces. And I know you're going to talk with us a little bit about some IPM related issues as well. But I have to say, I know you have some real giants in their respective spaces, and somehow you seem to find your way to working with and knowing all of these folks. So I'm excited to see what you'll share with us in the coming year with your series here. So if you don't mind me asking, I am incredibly curious. We're talking about horticulture writ large, but would you mind satisfying my curiosity and just sharing with us a little bit about what your personal favorite plant is and kind of what your story is there with that?
So my favorite plant has and always be sunflower. There might be folks out there who's listening would be, oh yeah, I love sunflowers too. Sunflower's scientific name is Hylianthus ansis. Sorry if I'm getting too nerdy, but just bear me with that. The Hylianthus is a Greek Latin name. All of the scientific name of are Latin names. It means sun, and anus means flower. And annuus, the species name means it's an annual plant. So basically, the scientific name can give you a way of some of the characteristics the plant shares. I think I love this plant for at least two reasons. From the plant perspective, the young sunflowers, they face the sun all the time. They track the sun across the sky from east in the morning and west in the afternoon. And then at night, the head will reorient back towards the east, and then they're gonna ready for the sunrise the next morning. So the mechanism behind that is because the uneven cell growth in the stem. The side of the stem that is away from the sun grows faster, which bends the head toward the sun. And the reason is because the hormone control, the movement is driven by auxin, which is a very common plant hormone that stimulates the growth. So the auxin are accumulated on the shady side of the stem, and elongating those cells and causing the head to bend towards light. You don't see a lot of plants having that movement. A lot of plants you're saying it's just sitting there and just shine and bloom in there. But sunflower is two of those intriguing plants that can have their movement, just like human. And the second reason is from the cultural perspective. Another side fact about me is Vincent van Gogh is my favorite painter, and he painted several sunflower series in between 1887 to 1889. And he used them to decorate his studio and as a welcome for his friend and fellow painter, Paul Gauguin. If you haven't read the bibliography of Vincent van Gogh, please do, because I guarantee you after you read that bibliography, you're going to fall in love with this guy. Not just because of his talent in painting, but he as the person. So for him, sunflower represents gratitude and friendship, but they also expressed as a cycle of life and death. Because he has some of the paintings that the flower that he's painting are vibrant, others are wilting. But one of the features that most of Van Gogh's painting are the bold color that he used. For all those like sunflower painting series that he has, he used the bold yellows, which is a way to explore light, hope, and spiritual radiance. So from the cultural perspective, sunflower represents Van Gogh passionate, emotional, and the incredible talents and gifts. So that's why I feel like every time I saw sunflower, I think about Van Gogh, I think about the bibliography, I think about his life and all the struggle he has and all the achievements that he come across over the years. Every time I saw sunflower, I would have the courage to carry on with whatever struggle that I may have. I was like, life is worth living and there's always a hope. Just keep going on. So from the both plant perspective and cultural perspective, sunflower does give me all those power that a plant can. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing with that. That was an incredibly touching story. It really was such an intimate part of his life from beginning to end. And what a way, just wonder the way he saw and shared with us that interplay between color and light. You don't have to speak the language to know that it speaks to you. Well, I know you have shared with me a little bit about the podcast, and I have to say, I'm incredibly interested in what inspired you to start with this series, both in general, but let me just ask, why a podcast?
So basically, I have think about podcast for a long time, but with my busy schedule, I just never had a chance to really set time and commit it to and take any actions towards it. But I have to thank my student Yan, who's here today with us, and she initiated or pushed me to the point where I have to take actions right now. Yan, do you mind share some of those original idea of the podcast and how you push me to the edge of have to take actions for the podcast now?
No problem. Actually, I came up with this idea because of my PhD program. I'm currently doing research about thrips parasbiner, so I want everybody to raise awareness about these insects. Now, I think podcast is quite popular way for people to sharing and for entertaining. So I think it's a good time for us to do that. This project is supported by the grant from American Flora Endowment, whose mission is to fund educational programs to promote more young people into the horticulture industry. Progress Project is an educational program. It suits the AFE's mission very well. Our vision is quite simple to share the science-based strategy in a way that's easy for the public to follow and be practical. We want this to be useful for everyone, the growers, researchers, students, and even the home gardeners. We will cover the things in our podcast like the thrips biology, biological control, and the cultural practices, integrated pest management. And from our research updates and the real success stories from in the field. And I think the best part for our podcast is you can tune in whenever and wherever you are, whether you're in a greenhouse or you're driving the way to your company or just relaxing at home. It's my original desire to design this project.
Yeah, as I told you before, I had thought about podcast for a long time. I just never had a chance or initiation to actually take any actions on that. Early this year, we got a American Flora Endowment educational grant proposal. We got the award, and the proposal was developed by my student Yan, and she wanted to develop a podcast that specifically to deliver or disseminate the information that generated from her research project. In that original proposal, she proposed the podcast would be named as Thrips Talks, which include 6 episodes covering the biological of thrips and their cultural practice or management, and some of the case studies in nursery and greenhouses. So after we got that proposal, I was like, okay, now we are doing it. That's the initiation of me actually taking action for the podcast idea. But because I have a background in horticulture in general, and I love plants, I love interaction with people in this field and wanted to share the plant power to a larger audience. So I talked to the AFE staff to expand the Thrips Talk podcast a little bit more so that we can include more topics and covering more information related to plants so that we can share the power of plant to more people. And they were like, yeah, that's great, because I don't want to just start a podcast and have 6 episodes and be down, because we have so much to talk about plants, and plant world is just a wonderful world. And once you stepped in, you don't want to step out. That's how we end up having podcast here today, and I look forward to moving this podcast forward and growing with the podcast as well.
Thanks for sharing with us a little bit more about the why of the podcast and Ping, you have shared with me off the air here a little bit about sort of the things that inspire you and some of the places I know you want to go in the future with this podcast. Do you mind sharing with us a little bit more about your vision?
Yeah. So basically, as the tagline of the podcast, to give you some hints on what we're going to talk about from the podcast, it's a podcast that cover plant history, culture, and management through the lens of science. So the history of plant, and I think it's just more about you feel the power of plant and culture with the example from the sunflower. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to more information on that, because I don't think a lot of people out there would know, or I think they will appreciate more if they would know more. And so I'm trying to attract more people into horticulture. That's just my personal reason behind the scene. I wanted to unfold the plant power through horticulture anecdotal stories and successful management practices. And each episode will feature an interview with an expert in horticulture, bringing you the most enchanting stories behind the scenes, the pioneering research shapes the future, and the invisible power enrich your life. So whether you're a commercial professional looking for management practices, students in search of horticulture career opportunities, or someone just questioning after plant-related stories, or anyone in between, you can find something in this podcast that'll help you. So with my current position at University of Georgia as specialist for ornamental production, it is natural for me to create and deliver information to my target stakeholder, which is the commercial growers, who is constantly looking for management practices, solutions to help their production. And like I said, I would also love to share the plant power to a larger audience who has a plant heart, wanting to step into the plant jungle with me. So generally, I wanted to make sure that I weave in all those information that will work for the general public who has a place in their heart for plant, and also the commercial grower nurseries and even landscapers to provide useful information and practices to help them with their production and operation. So those are the two main audience that I'm shooting for. Most of my guest speakers will be the researchers who are professional from the academia, because most of my network are from them. But I would also have guest speakers from the industry with strong horticultural backgrounds and organization leaders to talk about their experience and share the stories, so you would know a little bit more about the plants. And because when you walk out of the podcast episode, I would love for the growers or commercial professionals to grab at least one piece of device that can help you with your operation and production. And for the general public and people who love plants, to get one piece of information that you can even brag about. Oh, I know, for instance, I know how the sunflower move around to the sun. Just things like that, so that you can spread the plant power to a larger audience, so that we can all make the whole environment a little bit better. Some of the topics about this podcast will range from the management perspective, including irrigation management, plant hunting techniques and labor management, career preparation, and IPM, and anything in between. And I would love to, I'll try my best to weave in the history and culture and stories within each of those related topics, because believe me, all those people that I've known in the horticulture field, they all have the enchanting story of how they end up getting horticulture and about some specific plant. So I'm trying to weave those information into each topic so that we can enjoy the story while learn something from it.
Love where you are taking this, both with the speakers that you mentioned, but I cannot wait to see where you're going to grow it, particularly when you mention folks on the production side of things, on the growing side of things, on the management side of things, this just seems like something that no matter where our interests lie, there are so many places where we share them. And regardless of where we land in this space, there's the opportunity both for interconnection and for learning.
Yeah.
All right. So Ping, can we go ahead and kind of end on the note, maybe just sharing with the audience about maybe some of the folks, particularly who in your journey had some of the largest or most profound impact for you in terms of your journey in horticulture throughout your life?
Thank you for asking me on that. There are so many names that need to be mentioned, but among them, I have to say at least two of them. If without them, I wouldn't be who I am and I wouldn't be where I am right now. Back to my master's degree, when I was doing my master's degree at Nanjing First University, I was asked by my back then advisor to be a tour guide for Dr. James Robbins, who is a retired professor and extension specialist from University of Arkansas. And so I spent a couple, maybe 3 days with him exploring Nanjing City. And then we're talking about my professional experience and, of course, my personal experience. And he started to encourage me to apply a PhD program at Texas A&M University with Dr. Meng Gu, who is the Dean of Extension at University of Colorado State University right now. This is the American dream come true type of story. Back then, I didn't think that I can actually do that. I was just a master student at a random university in China. And then she started to talk to me, hey, if you wanted to, why don't you start preparing your English test and then see how it goes? And I was like, oh gosh, I never thought about it. And I don't think I can even afford that. And it's like, if you can pass a test and there are assistantships that you can get, and so you can come here with a PhD program along with me. And I did. That's how I ended up going to Texas A&M, getting my PhD degree from there. And I have to say, without Dr. James Robbins or Dr. Meng Gu, I would not be who I am right now, and I would never be where I am right now. So those two really shaped my career and also my personal journey a lot. And of course, there are so many other people that has helped me professionally and personally along the journey, but those two are the one who really shaped my career path in horticulture. And that's why I wanted to pass the legacy to the next generation. I wanted to help them just like the way they helped me. One of the things that I remember the most from Dr. James Robbins is pay it forward. So this is what I am doing, pay it forward, to help the next generation to do a good job and become a better person and help with their career paths. So yeah, those two are the one that I am most grateful for my career path.
Oh, what a cool story, Ping. We really do never go anywhere alone, do we?
No, you cannot.
And something you shared, about we've got dreams, but how do we get there? That is one of the things that I have to say for all of the mountains that you have to climb to get where you're going, the systems that we have in place to pursue doctoral future or possibility in the sciences with land-grant universities is kind of wonderfully unique in the fact that there are, if you put in the work like you so obviously have to make the possibilities possible for you in the first place, the fact that there are ways to make that happen is really inspiring to me. And I think it certainly will be, as you said, to a lot of folks who have aspirations of that in the future. So it's really something to hear you talk about just how important, what did you call it, paying it forward is to you too. So I want to take the chance to say thank you, Dr. Yu and Yan, for sharing your stories with us today.
This episode is supported by American Floral Endowment Educational Grant. Conversation like this only happens when you support the show. For more information and find ways to support us, please go to bnbpod.com, bnbpod.com. If you like what you are hearing, spread the word and share this podcast with the people you love. Make sure you hit that subscription button and give a review for the podcast. And as always, go check out the show notes to learn more about this topic and other topics we featured on the show at bnbpod.com. Thank you for listening. Till the next time, stay healthy and go plants.